Help support Friendo Club by going to patreon.com/Steven Larson or clicking join at youtube.com/Steven Larson. Access to bonus episodes, question threads for the Going In Raw podcast, and entry to our monthly wrestling predictions challenges. Join the Friendo Club today. Hey, Friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome back to Going In Raw News Beef. We couldn't help ourselves, Larson. There wasn't a whole lot in the news today, but last night, Tony Khan decided to step in it a little bit on Twitter with some amusing results. Look, Here's the thing. It's silly, but I uploaded just a real quick WrestleJuice video to just give my instant thoughts on this last night at like midnight, and it's a 1 of 10. People like this kind of shit, Twitter and it'd be silly if you and I didn't have a silly conversation about Tony Khan's silly Twitter use and the fallout of it, and kind of an interesting side effect, which may or may not play out on Monday. So let's dive into this, Larson. Where does this start?
So let's go back to Monday, this past Monday. So Jinder Mahal comes out, confronts Seth Rollins during Seth's promo on Raw, and this led to a World Heavyweight Championship match being booked for next Monday's episode of Raw between the two of them. And Tony Khan took that as an opportunity to go to Twitter to air some grievances about criticism that's apparently been out there about Hook, saying he wants to challenge Samoa Joe for the AEW World Championship. This is what Tony Khan had to say, quote, "A double standard. Hook, 28-1 career record, on a winning streak, calls out the champ. A logical challenge sparked online outrage. Jinder has literally lost every single match he's in for the past year, immediately gets title shot. Where is the rage?" Steve, I got a question for you. I understand to a degree, my social media is as curated as I can make it.
Yeah.
I personally didn't see a whole lot of outrage.
Yeah.
In terms of Hook calling out Samoa Joe. Did you see outrage?
I'll be completely honest with you, and I'm not sitting here trying to take sides or anything like that. I saw a lot more. Look, let's be honest. We're using this word outrage. Tony Khan used the word outrage, and really what it is this harsh internet wrestling community criticism. I think is probably a better
criticism would be the correct word. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a lot more directed towards Jinder Mahal showing up on Monday Night Raw than I did over Hook. I personally didn't, but again, a lot of it might be social media curation where, look, I when I open up Twitter, I'm on the For You tab instead of the following one, and I'm okay with that because it does expose me to a degree to a lot of voices that either I can mute or block, or other voices in the internet wrestling community that I feel like need to inform me about what people are talking about in the job. Not people that I want to follow, but people who are capturing a certain zeitgeist on Twitter.
Well, and different perspectives on the products that we all watch. Yes.
I didn't personally see any of that towards Hook, but in Tony Khan's world, to be AEW is to be under attack. His words, not mine.
Exactly. And I'm sure whenever he makes any announcement or there's any decision made from a creative standpoint that airs on the show, there's probably people getting on their phones and tweeting
I'm not
at
saying
him
it doesn't
all
exist.
sorts of ridiculous and probably horrible stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist in his orbit. It probably does because everything he does seems to draw criticism, 90% of which is disingenuous.
Yes.
But then there's also constructive criticism here to be. Now, before we continue on with the firestorm, let's stop there really quick. Let me ask you, I gave my thoughts on WrestleJuice and I'll reiterate them here for the Going In Raw crowd, but do you think it's a double standard in terms of let's say, for example, there was some outrage one over the other. My simple opinion is sort of the writing of these different scenarios, kind of two sides of the same coin. What do you think?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's professional wrestling and it's nothing worth getting outraged over.
Sure.
First and foremost, these are companies trying to tell some stories here, and if there's criticism to be levied and it's earnest and honest and fair, sure, but outrage, no, it's not worth outrage.
Sure.
In this instance, to a degree, this is how I view it. And I know AEW hasn't exactly always followed through with this, but AEW has always tried to present themselves, or more often than not, tried to present themselves as a more sports-based approach to pro wrestling. And so from Tony Khan's perspective, you have Hook, who's lost one match in his career, and him, with that record, as Tony Khan says, on a winning streak. If he wants to challenge the champ, all right, from that perspective, it makes sense. WWE, they don't care about wins and losses as much over there. Let's say they're not important. They are. But they don't care about wins and losses in terms of how they approach title shots.
They are not the catalyst for title shots.
No. You could have a sub 500 winning percentage for the year. So the champ accepts your challenge, match happens.
Yeah, right.
Or if you go to Adam Pearce or whatever authority figure, happy to be running that show, you ask him for a title shot. If for whatever nebulous criteria is met in their mind, you get the title shot.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
It's two different booking philosophies.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's in the end, people going after titles is a storytelling mechanic and a beat in a story. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is. Yeah. This isn't genuine competition in the same sense that football, baseball, these are scripted segments that lead to scripted matches to tell stories. And if WWE feels like there's a story to be told with having Jinder challenge Seth and that match happening, if they think that makes for an interesting story, they're going to do it regardless if Jinder has won a match within the last year, last month, last day, last 10 years.
I think there is valid criticism that can be levied over A, both booking philosophies, and B, these specific instances.
Yeah,
he brings up Hook's 28-1 record. Since he won the FTW title back at Wembley, he's had 2 singles matches, one against Rocky Romero and one against Wheeler Yuta.
Yes.
Not exactly world title contender type guys. Everything else since Wembley has been a multi-man match. He hasn't even had really a lot of singles matches in those 28 wins. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that him stepping up to the champion as opposed to a guy, maybe the guy that's going to take that title off Joe, Swerve Strickland, who's had wins over Hangman Page, John Moxley, ran pretty much the table in the Continental Classic against real good competitors.
Jay White beat Jay White in the tournament. Yeah,
exactly. So he's got the credentials with the record. If you want to point to records, that I believe if we're talking about constructive criticism for the stories that are being told.
Yes, that would be constructive criticism. And you're also saying every win should be presented as equal.
Exactly.
You know, like defeating Wheeler Yuta, fine, he's a pure champion. In the instance of Swerve, beating Hangman, former AEW champion, beating Jay White, former IWGP champion.
Yeah.
You think those wins would carry more weight than a kickoff show match for the last pay-per-view?
Now, the flip side of that with Jinder Mahal, and I'm glad you mentioned that both shows have different booking philosophies. With WWE, it's a tried and true tradition for a former champion that usually gives them the credentials to come out and say, listen, yes, I've been managing Indus Sher. Yes, I haven't had an actual singles win in forever, but I'm going to challenge you because I've got in my history a 6-month title reign as champion. That in the world of WWE is good enough. I think in the same way as in the sports-centric world, or what they'd like it to be the sports-centric world of AEW, Hook, a guy with 2 wins in singles competition against sort of low-level competitors, no disrespect to the guys I mentioned, challenging Samoa Joe. I feel like they're both foregone conclusion matches with foregone conclusion builds that don't really need to be all that logical, if you will. I don't think Hook's is any more or less logical than Jinder Mahal, given that there are 2 different philosophies here. I just don't.
Given, especially in Joe's case, given the level of competition that have already called out Joe.
Correct. Yeah.
You got Hangman, you got Swerve, amongst others that are already said, we want Joe.
Yeah. Yeah.
People that have the resumes to instantly jump to the front of the line for world title contention.
Yeah.
more so than Hook. Again, no disrespect to Hook.
Yeah, it's two different philosophies,
yes.
and honestly, both challengers have weak cases to be made. So that being said, Raj Giri happened to point out also on Twitter that Seth and Jinder had some history. Rollins had defeated Mahal in the finals of the tournament to crown the very first NXT champion 10 years ago, to which USA Network, the Twitter account for the USA Network,
yes,
responded with, what was the cage match rating? Which is a bit of a dig at Tony Khan, who has used the website Cage Match, which is a database / rating system for viewers. He has used that in the past in a variety of ways to point out the critical acclaim in the past that AEW has received. He's also used it to criticize when sort of bots, I guess, are used, or there's a disingenuous inflation of, for example, NXT's cage match ratings as well. Tony Khan has a history of being basically a wrestling nerd. He would post on the message boards, et cetera, et cetera. There's a reason why this guy has now spent hundreds of millions of dollars on a wrestling promotion, because he understands the business of wrestling, and he's a big nerd for it, a combination where if you have a lot of money, it's sort of natural for you to get into the business of professional wrestling. It makes sense. So in response to that seemed to get under the skin of Tony Khan. He quote tweeted that and said, "A moral victory for USA is one win more than their world title challenger Jinder Mahal has had in the past 364 days, because it's been literally a full year since he won a match. You really put AEW in our place, getting Jinder Mahal in a big match on your TV show. Do it more often." So, of course, this level of response completely ignited the internet wrestling community on fire. And you love to see it. It's hilarious because the memes show up and the people with, the very earnest takes show up.
Well, there's some people with the earnest takes, there's a groundswell of support, and I think some of it's earnest, and I think some of it is a bit tongue-in-cheek.
Oh, we're going to get to the Jinder support here in a second. Yeah, because Jinder then responded to that tweet. Oh, I didn't know he deleted it, so he deleted it.
Yeah.
And he said, who TF? So who the fuck is Hook? Watch Monday Night Raw on USA Network Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern. So some within the internet wrestling community saw this as Tony Khan throwing shade at the modern-day Maharaja, which led to a groundswell of support of the former WWE champ, and
again,
obviously
some earnest, some tongue-in-cheek, yes.
Yeah, a lot of great memes as well. On today's edition of WWE's The Bump, Jinder was asked about the reactions he's been garnering since confronting The Rock on Raw a couple weeks ago, as well as his thoughts on being the topic of conversation over the past 24 hours or so, to which he replied, these transcripts come to you via Fightful, "It's nothing new to me. The WWE Universe has always reacted to me in such fashion. There's a famous shot when I became WWE champion, the pan into the crowd and everybody's jaws hitting the floor. I don't understand why the WWE Universe is surprised when the modern-day Maharaja returns or becomes champion. Let's face it, I am the prototype of what every superstar should be, the prototype of what every champion should be. I look the part, I speak the part, I speak with intelligence, I speak with truth, I bring it in the ring. I've been in there with possibly the greatest competitors of all time in our business, the likes of Randy Orton, John Cena, Shinsuke Nakamura, AJ Styles. So again, I'm insulted by the reactions, but it was a great start to the new year until I was interrupted by The Rock. But nonetheless, this past week, I was in the ring with Seth Rollins, told him exactly how I feel, and now I'm number one contender to the World Heavyweight Champion. I was trending on Twitter all day yesterday, laughs, and somehow, again, the modern-day Maharaja is the talk of town. Larson, in this instance, I hope to God that Twitter, in some way, shape, or form, becomes real life for some segment of the audience. I want them to explode for Jinder because that just makes it so much more entertaining. I haven't been a fan of these last two segments with him. If this is the kind of thing that sort of ignites a fire under him and with the crowd, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. If there is like a legit groundswell of support for Jinder Mahal, it would be something else.
It would be.
It really would be something else, and we've talked at length both during his title reign and afterwards about the aspects that we appreciated and the aspects that didn't work.
Yeah.
And a lot of his title reign from a creative standpoint did not work.
From the push itself, the build for Jinder, and the crazy thing is, one of the things that I think is universally understood from my perspective watching the social media discourse, the packaging of Jinder,
fantastic.
The shape he got himself into, the Bollywood Boys, the theme song was the best of that year, probably in terms of like theme songs that had cropped up. That theme song was outstanding. It still is. The packaging of Jinder Mahal was a 10 out of 10.
Yes.
The problem is, as we've stated before, it's really difficult to take a guy who is a perpetual jobber, a loser, who had just lost like a feud with Gronkowski or something weird like that. I forget what had happened.
Yeah, it was Gronk, yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's good.
Yeah.
Or at least savvy enough as a bad guy to get wins over Randy Orton.
Yeah.
That's not believable unless we see that story play out on TV in advance. And with the guy where he was prior to that title win, it was going to take a long time for us to get there. But had they nailed that story, I think a section of the general public would have been much more willing to go along with it.
Exactly. And he wasn't helped at all by the creative of his title reign itself.
Absolutely true.
I mean, the Orton stuff, was not great. It got worse with the Nakamura feud.
Yeah. One thing I will say about his title reign, and it's a small thing, they did book the Colossus as a world beater.
Yeah.
People were not kicking out of the Colossus during his run, and I love to see that. Once he got that on and he hit it, nobody was kicking out of that, and I like that about it. But beyond that, that's like the only thing you could really say, this was good.
Well, the chemistry between him and the Bollywood Boys was good.
Yeah, sure. The actual stories involved, though, just
not good. Not good at all.
Not good at all.
Not good.
Yeah.
Not good. No.
But I would absolutely love to see Jinder Mahal get that support, though. I really would love to see.
What about winning the title, Steve?
I don't know about all that. Not now, because again, you can't come out of nowhere and do that. And if
that's Jinder's story?
Yeah, I mean, it was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I do think though, and I don't, again, I'm not going to read too much into this until I see more, but I would love to think that if Triple H is savvy enough, he could see this and look at Jinder and say, he still has a good look. There's stuff we can do with him, even if they make him sort of a carrying cross-level depth guy. I'd love to see more of that. And, you sort of upgrade from the Bollywood Boys to Indus Sher. I'd be down for that. I want him to be a bit more entertaining when it comes to what he has to say, because I think he can be. It's just, the foreign heel stuff, even the way he's framing it, which is trying to be a little bit more modern about it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't do a lot for me. You gotta do something different with it.
It's not the most inspired direction. Mm-hmm. I'll agree with that. I feel like he's doing the best he can with what he's being given.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And going back to his title run, he's always comported himself really well on the microphone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even when he's handed garbage.
Yeah,
which
he was
for a lot of time he was.
He was. There was some ugly stuff with Nakamura back then.
Yes, there was.
But yeah, the guy has charisma. He's got the voice. He is capable on the mic. I've heard good things about him as a person, which I always like. And he always, even during his title reign especially, there was that extra element of, you can tell he's having fun.
Yes.
And that always goes a long way. When
it's infectious, yeah.
It is. It's infectious. That's a good word for it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it remains to be seen if Triple H is going to try to capitalize on the social media buzz, or if it's going to kind of peter out once Jinder inevitably loses to Seth on Monday.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So who knows? Who knows? This could be just a thing that came and went just as quickly.
I love the idea, though, that maybe if Triple H sees, okay, he went out there, did everything and more we asked him to with The Rock, then he comes out there against Seth. Hey, let's roll with this a little bit. I mean, they give him the title shot. They give him some TV exposure. I think maybe because he did such a good job doing what he should have done, doing what he needed to do with The Rock, going out there. He was out there forever. And he got The Rock. The Rock gets The Rock over, but he was a good foil for The Rock there.
Yeah.
And I hope they do use him more often. I think he's a good asset, and I think he could do some stuff for the company.
Also, taking advantage of the situation presented to him here with all this, going on the bump and being for the most part in character, but also seemingly realizing to a degree the ridiculousness of this whole situation, but also knowing that it's something he could take advantage of.
You can run with it. You can run with it. You can make some money off it. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. So, if Triple H sees that, hey, Jinder's smart, he's taking advantage of the situation to try to advance our stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe there'll be more form down the line. That'd be great.
Yeah, you definitely like to think so. Before we get on to our next story, real quick, this episode of Going In Raw is sponsored by BetterHelp. Larson.
What's that, Steve?
There's a saying that makes the rounds anytime the calendar turns to a new year. Maybe you've heard of it. New year, new you.
Oh, yeah.
Around this time of year, so many of us focus on how to change ourselves rather than spotlight what we're doing right. And therapy can help you find your strengths so you can ditch those wild resolutions and make changes that really stick.
I've talked a lot about how severe anxiety disrupted my life, my mid-20s. Now, therapy helped me learn the tools I needed to better cope with that anxiety. But therapy also helped me to recognize and reinforce what I was doing right, which helped me get back on the path, becoming a happier, healthier, and more productive Larson. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try.
BetterHelp is completely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. All you got to do to get started is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and then you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge.
So celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/raw today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/raw.
All right, let's continue on here. So during a recent interview with GameSpot, new AEW signee Will Ospreay confirmed that he received a contract offer from the WWE, but explained that he decided to sign with AEW because their offer was better, and he trusted Tony Khan. Ospreay added, "I want to know what I'm doing within the ring, and the rest for me is easy. What more could you want from a boss?" He was asked then what he hoped to accomplish in AEW, and he said this: "There's something for me to climb. There's something for me to build upon. That first match with Chris Jericho, who was one of the biggest wrestling stars in the world, was probably the biggest star in the company at the time. I want to progress from that. I want to see what other bucket list items I can tick. I want to go for championships. I want to go for world titles. I want to see what I can actually do because I've never been put in these situations. New Japan is a sports-based wrestling product. It isn't really known for its on-screen personalities. So this is all new for me, and I just want to test myself. I want to try my very best to swim in waters I'm not very sure of. So for me, this is all a challenge." So interesting that WWE evidently offered him a better offer, and AEW said, "This is better offer here."
Yeah.
Or offered him a good deal.
Offered him a deal than AEW's offer was better. Yeah, and I guess that had kind of been referenced earlier, but to hear it from him is something else entirely. Going back to when Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson debuted in AEW, back then, we thought it might be a huge kind of fulcrum moment in pro wrestling. The pro wrestling landscape didn't exactly play out that way, but we said if nothing else, AEW, they may not be able to compete with WWE in terms of money or TV ratings, but they can compete for talent.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And you have Will Ospreay, who is in the conversation to be the best wrestler in the world today, at the peak of his popularity, and you'd think at the peak of his leverage in terms of negotiating a huge deal for himself, deciding to go with AEW rather than, and I'm sure money wasn't the sole factor. He can live and still live in England and travel to the States when he's booked for the shows, and otherwise, he has to stay home, doesn't have to move.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's huge for him too, but the fact that he went with AEW rather than the giant multi-billion-dollar company,
guys. Yeah,
is interesting, and still speaks to AEW's ability to compete for top-tier talent.
It also says something from what I can tell about the relationship between AEW and New Japan, that is going to be something that you would think WWE might want to target at some point, given that there is a pipeline of trust, of understanding, of communication while people are in New Japan who might want to penetrate the United States market, like Will Ospreay with AEW, already having worked with Tony Khan through the Forbidden Door stuff or through whatever else he does, the Wembley stuff, already having worked with him, already knowing what he's about. Sometimes that alone is enough to give, hey, you have the upper hand. Now just, try to compete at least with what they're offering monetarily. And evidently AEW did that as well. But you got to think if you look at what happened in 2023, with not just Ospreay, but Jay White as well.
Yeah.
You got to wonder, given that New Japan, after AEW, New Japan is probably, in terms of, a possible pipeline of talent, WWE might want to target that. And it'll be interesting to see this year if they do try to initiate a relationship with New Japan. Obviously, we've talked about that here on the show and what's been reported with that. But it'll be interesting if that ever becomes a priority for WWE to tap into New Japan to try to make it more of a talent pipeline.
I mean, that could be one of the reasons that, there's the uptick of rumors about WWE pursuing a relationship with New Japan is not only the talent exchange aspect of it, but yes, the potential pipeline. And I wonder if it's attractive for people leaving New Japan to come wrestle in the States, the opportunity to still potentially go back to Japan or wrestle on New Japan shows, whether it's here or in Japan, and maintaining that aspect of their careers. I mean, I know Jay White, in his instance, he lost not one but two loser leaves New Japan matches.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much wiggle room there is there for him to one day potentially make a return, but it's pro wrestling. You could write
Well,
that.
as we know in pro wrestling, that's set in stone, Larson.
Yes,
There's
exactly.
nothing he can do to get back there. They can't.
No, that's
write
legally binding, and there's no way around it. Absolutely not.
Right, exactly.
But in the case of Will Ospreay, I believe he's mentioned that in his AEW deal, he has the opportunity potentially wrestle in Japan. So that could be an aspect of it, and if that's something, if WWE would entertain, should they enter into a deal with New Japan or some sort of partnership, that could bolster their case as a destination as well. So
yeah, no, absolutely. I have 8 minutes to answer questions. Larson, would you like to answer 8 minutes of questions?
Or we could take a break and reconvene afterwards.
Well, let's just do 8 minutes of questions.
8 minutes of questions. All right, very well.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll just speed round some of these.
All right.
Devil Survivor says, do you think TNA will be able to grow its audience with the rebranding coming soon?
I don't know if the rebrand alone is going to be able to grow the audience. I think it might gin up some nostalgia interest, but I think if they want to rebuild the audience, it's got to come from putting on awesome matches and telling some interesting stories.
And I think there's expanding the reach of their cable channel as well, which I think they're doing. That'll probably help a lot as well, just so people can actually see the damn thing. It's obviously, look, it's a marketing stunt. It's a very elaborate marketing stunt. And that is designed to get eyeballs. Like you said, it all boils down to stories and matches. That's what it boils down to. You do that. If you can hook people with the TNA rebrand and then keep them in for matches and with matches and stories, you're good to go. But you gotta do that. It's a process.
It is. DJ Fluffy here says, with New Japan gaining somewhat mainstream popularity again, could you ever see them selling out a stadium show in the U.S.? If not, in what year was their peak to where they could have sold out a stadium? I don't know if they can do it now. When they were hot, when they had, so they had the two Long Beach shows here that we were lucky enough to attend. That seemed to kind of be the test to see how well they could draw. If the next time they had a show and they really loaded that card, they might have been able to pull off a stadium show then.
Yeah. They might have, if it is a stadium show like on the East Coast where there's like an easy travel situation from like Europe, basically, the fans that they have cultivated sort of in the U.S. and European area, I guess, the fans they've cultivated since 2017 might, given like that it's a new, like it's the first time ever thing, New Japan Stadium show, Okada versus Naito, just because those are very, tried and true names.
Yeah.
They might be able to do it now, but I kind of feel like December of 2018, right before, because wasn't Wrestle Kingdom 2019 when they got rid of the AEW guys, or was it 20?
Yeah.
It was 2019.
It was 2019. Yeah, it was 2019.
Yeah, and it was very unceremonious, and
yeah,
they had the lame Bullet Club Civil War, which went nowhere.
Yeah.
If you do it before that really went south, like late 2018, when they were hot,
Yeah.
Cody's there, Kenny's firing all cylinders. You could have done it then. I think they could have done it.
I think so. Mr. Sinister here asked, do you guys think this whole Jinder Tony Khan hook beef is just a way to distract us from the Miami aliens?
Listen, here's the deal. Miami aliens? Wow.
Hot take there from Steve. Blake here asks, is Jinder's bad title run more so on Jinder or Vince? 2017 itself was a bad year for the company. Yeah, it's Vince.
Vince!
And even the brand, Jinder wasn't doing any better. Yeah, it's Vince.
1,000% it's Vince. Give me a break. He's the one writing the damn story. Jinder did everything he could.
And Jinder wasn't in a position to push back.
No. David says, with Obafemi winning the NXT North American Championship. I saw that, man. That was awesome. In only his 6th televised match, who do you think should break his record from debut to champion? Hey, that's a big dude who's got a ton of upside. And that if they're doing this with him this soon, they see it in the PC. They see it when the cameras aren't rolling. They see it. This dude might be special. I'm looking forward to seeing his career over the next 15 to 20 years,
Same. Doc Hensla says, hey, friendos, why does AEW keep making more and more titles? Why should I care about a Continental title when there are 2 titles basically the same level? Makes no sense to me. It's just, it seems like a pretty easy way to try to generate some interest in the product. Hey, new championship.
It's so in my opinion, it's lazy. And to be honest, it's kind of irritating because now you've got a whole scene around the Continental Championship, and it's like you're barely doing anything with your women's division.
Yeah.
So like that's just taking more, instead of a second women's match, you're spotlighting both TBS and women's title, on your show. It's like one show gets one, the other show gets the other.
Mm-hmm.
I have no desire to see that the Continental. I think that the tournament should have been for a title shot. I like the idea of Eddie Kingston having put up those titles. Didn't need a 3rd title or didn't need the Continental crown. I think winning the Classic could have been enough, and you get a title shot.
No, I agreed.
We've talked about this a little bit, Jinder, what they could have done different there. Oh, wow. Reaper Red says, what do you guys think Vince would be like if Twitter was around in the 90s and early 2000s? Do you think he would have been a heavy Twitter user?
I could see Vince. Yeah.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah. Because then that's a direct pipeline to get his narrative out to his audience. Rather than have to be interviewed by Bob Costas or something like that to get some publicity, he just go on, because like in the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era, he was all about getting publicity.
Yeah.
And with social media, he would have a direct pipeline to his audience.
I mean, Twitter's been going strong for what, 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't tweeting 10 years. I mean, just he wasn't.
He was
tweeting.
Kind of late to join. If I remember correctly.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
But 25 years ago,
Era,
I don't know. I feel like it might have been
Vince.
different. It's a different Vince. Different Vince.
I don't know. Maybe you're right. I kind of feel like he would think that Twitter, that he's above it. Like Twitter is where the regular people are, I could be wrong about that. That maybe he'd see it's a small thing to tweet, your thoughts when you've got TV. I don't know.
But imagine if you tweet your thoughts. I mean, heck, potentially, if depending on the number of followers you can have more reach with the tweet than you can with an episode of Raw or SmackDown.
I think if he was a full-on like tweeting machine, oh man, that would have been amazing.
It'd have been something else.
The level of like cancellation that dude would have been facing. Oh wow, we'll end on this one. Forbes says, what are the chances that Tony Khan goes full batshit crazy and books Hook to win tonight?
Is that match even happening tonight?
Oh, is it happening? I think it's happening.
All I know is that Hook called him out. I didn't know there was a match booked.
No, he called him out. I think on Dynamite, it's just Samoa Joe talks.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah,
might
I
get a
think
new
he
title.
just talks. There's like a bunch of tag matches and
No,
stuff.
Hook's not winning. Yeah, there is a lot of tag matches tonight.
The chance of Hook winning are basically like if it's a complete and total botch and, Rick Knox is in there reffing and he loses his mind for a second.
Yeah.
That's the
it.
otherwise that ain't going to happen.
What should happen is Samoa Joe should wipe the floor with Hook. That's what should happen.
Hook should have one hope spot. Spot. Yeah, one hope spot. Anyways, that's going to do it for the show today. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll see you around.
Goodbye.